I'm not getting us right. What do you think? Just like always gives you. Yeah. This would be close.
I'm Ali Bykart, and you might know me as Ula Bykart, that's my alter ego. And tonight, me and Lynn are hosting this birthing of this book project, and it's so exciting for us to be here, launching on a stage, to kind of really feel the atmosphere of sex. That's what we're here for, right? So we had this idea 5 years ago to kind of take seriously bodies and the experiences and testimonies of bodies, and bodies on stage, bodies doing sexy things. And we put this call out, and we got this really surprising range of responses. So tonight, we're going to have a few of those contributors speaking of their contributions, of their essays. But I want to kind of introduce the book to you. It's divided into 3 sections, or acts, with 2 intermissions that are photo essays. The first is essays, the second is monologues, and the third is dialogues. And over this evening, we've got representations from all of those sections, and then some of our contributors are performers as well, so we've got a second half with performances. So I'm going to pass over to Lynn to introduce the book a little bit more, our project. Lynn Sally.
Hi everybody, how's everybody feeling tonight? Oh my god, if this stage could talk, the amount of sex that I have seen on this stage is unbelievable. And you know, we really came at this project to address all the things that we love, namely, you know, people pushing on the decorums of respectability in public ways. And so we wanted to come up with an umbrella framework to like capture all of these things we love. We love burlesque. Ali loves showgirls. You know, we love drag. We love sex workers. We love all of these amazing things that happen in the world where people are part of their bodies and they share it with the world. So we came up with the title of Sex on Stage. First of all, clickbait, hello, it's a great title, but it also provided that umbrella framework. And no one knew when we put this book together that we would have not to get too political, but I think I'm in a safe space here, that we would have an EO order from the government that put down gender ideology, extremism up there with like terrorists. And so it's interesting that we're having this conversation right now about sex, and I actually just went and read it. And if anyone has it in them to go explore it, it's actually really interesting because it does make a distinction between sex and gender. And it actually argues like gender is a social construct, gender is not fixed. And I'm like, thank you, federal government, for explaining, you know, genderqueer theory to the masses. But unfortunately, I don't think that's what they were thinking. I don't know if y'all saw this week, but now they're coming after pornography. Boo! I know they're trying to outlaw pornography now. It's kind of a little bit ridiculous. So sex is very, you know, it's very topical, but it's also still super controversial. And so we wanted to address this idea of sex. And Marissa Vigneault kind of frames this idea of sex as, is she here? Is she here? There she is. Oh, hi. Marissa Vigneault, we kind of start the book with framing it around her definition of sex. And, you know, in it she calls, you know, sex is kind of like gender in disguise. It's something that's like disguising itself as natural and real. But it's also something, she says, that we do with our sexed bodies. So for us, this idea of sex as an adjective, a noun, and a verb is really what this book is about. So we're really excited, this idea of sex as a cultural thing posing as a natural one, and it's something that we wanted to do throughout this text, and thinking about what we're doing as being a radical act, that the texts in here, the people expressing their ideas, that this is a critically feminist position, and that not only is it just like this radical political act, but it's also what makes us human, right? What makes us, it represents the human condition. And so denying certain bodies their ability to express themselves becomes a form of censorship. And we see this all the time with sex workers online. Even when I went to announce the publication of my book, some of you know me as Dr. Lucky, my little Lynn K. Sally, little nerdy reader Instagram, I changed it and added sex on stage, and my account instantly got disabled. Like, not a human being processing what I did, you naughty, naughty, bad little girl, but a bot saying the word SEX is illegal. And so how do you promote what you do? How do you promote a book when you can't even put the fucking title on social media? And more importantly, how does sex workers, how are they able to, talk about what they do, the labor that they do when they're constantly being silenced in these really policing ways? So the voices we have here, they're really varied. And when we put out the original call, we really made an emphasis to to ask people from different subject positions and also from different perspectives. So these are not all academic essays. However, we do have a lot of academics who are also strippers and sex workers and genderqueers and radicals. And it's pretty awesome to see all these voices coming together in the way that they wanted to express themselves. So we do have a lot of memoirs, but even our more academically traditional essays, the writers really pushed themselves to explore and explore their writing and kind of push it to the boundaries outside of the limits of academia. And this is the last thing that I want to say before we wrap up and get with our presenters, is that so often in the academy, academics are taught with their academic rigor to write in a very, very particular way. And, it's like pushing aside your body, your desires, your thoughts, your experimentations, your artistry. You got to push it aside because you got to follow that formula. And on the flip side, there's a lot of fucking smart-ass people out there who are performers and sex workers and experimental artists and radical queers, and they are not allowed at the table. So they are the subjects to be written and about, but not the people who get to speak. And so this book is about gathering a whole bunch of radical, queer, awesome voices together to talk about sex. How does that sound? So without further ado, that's our little book. And if you like what you're hearing, please come buy a book, because apparently no one reads anymore. So thank you for being here, you beautiful literate people. And I'm going to pass it over to Allie to introduce our speakers.
Academic poetry, theatre and fragment. Do you want to come on up, Dawn? Sure.
I'm just gonna use the boob as a bookmark, that's how we do. There we go. All right, hello, thank you all for coming out to support this, especially all the rain going on out there. All right, so my chapter is called The Becoming of Miss Aurora Borealis, from 14-year-old club kid to co-founder of Brown Girls Burlesque. So, I think I'm gonna jump around, and Allie, I'm gonna be looking at you for good timing. All right, if you can give me like a 2-minute and a 1-minute, awesome, because I know myself. All right, so I'm gonna jump around this chapter, and to hear the whole of it, you must buy the book. I was a 14-year-old punk rock kid living in rural upstate New York when I started dancing at a club in Albany. QE2, once a 1950s style hamburger joint, was turned into a nightclub in the 1980s by Charlene Shortsleeve. It was the center of the Albany underground scene and the whole of the Capital District in upstate New York. My mom was cool with it. as she figured if I was old enough to get an hour-long ride both ways and stay out all night dancing on a Monday night, and then I was old enough to deal with the consequences of having to function in school while exhausted the next morning. My mom must have really known that I needed this. QE2 on Monday nights became my communal experience, musical education, and a deep release, all wrapped in one ecstatic weekly experience. So I'm gonna skip on, but yeah, Monday nights, QE2 was an 18 and over. I was going there since I was 14 because I was always old for my age. All right, so my mom was used to Monday nights. But then this happened. I became one of the QE2 regulars, an unofficial crew of outcasts and weirdos. A few years later, one of our crew was dating a guy who was a roadie for this S&M industrial band called Sleep Chamber. They usually performed with the Barbituettes, a group of young women who danced at the band's shows in revealing clothing. When Sleep Chamber got booked at the Limelight in New York City, they weren't able to bring the Barbituettes with them from Boston. The QE2 crew stepped in. It was my first time going to New York City. I lied to my mom this time. I was 15 years old. We crammed in 2 carloads of excited teenagers into borrowed vehicles and sped down state with wild abandon. When we finally reached the West Side Highway, we hollered the lyrics to the Beastie Boys' No Sleep Till Brooklyn out the windows. We didn't really understand the geography, but we were like, New York City, ah! By the time we got to Chelsea and found parking, we were so late, we started running through the streets. I could feel the energy pulsing through the city and my body. We ran up to the front door of the Limelight, out of breath and slightly frantic. Please, we pleaded with the bouncer. We're supposed to be dancing with the band. We could hear the drum banging and the crowd howling inside. He gave us a hard time about our IDs, but we were persistent. He finally agreed to let us in. We rushed into the club. I whipped off my coat and bolted straight for the stage. I was wearing high-cut lingerie from the 1980s and little else. We all posed at the back of the stage looking like sexy cut-out paper dolls, when in reality, we were scantily clad teenage girls who had snuck out of their parents' home in upstate New York for this moment. We took turns descending onto the main stage in groups of 2. We had been told to dance around the band, all men in their 20s and 30s, and touch them and each other. The band watched us as if we were nothing more than sexy bodies, devoid of personhood. I was used to the subversive counterculture of QE2, and this felt different for me. I felt like I was on display. But I also felt an inexplicable burst of energy and joy. I looked at the sea of over 500 people rocking out to Sleep Chamber and felt a rush of excitement. I got into my character and became part of this incredible experience, collective experience. Something in me changed that night. I was starting to find myself, and I knew it was complicated, but there was a type of agency to be found in putting my own sexuality and body on display. By 19, I had started stripping. So I'm gonna end there.
Yeah!
Buy the book, so much more.
Skills to navigate tight spaces.
Hello. So I'll just give you a little context about my chapter. I am a modern dancer, but that doesn't pay anything. So when I was in my late 20s, I spent several years as a stripper, and that was a very that was a really tricky thing for me because I was not very comfortable performing femininity. I was not very good at it, I felt. But I learned. And years after I actually stopped stripping, I would hang out with coworkers and former coworkers and just started to notice that like many of us had started to identify as genderqueer and non-binary. And I thought, there's something about the experience of putting on this really high femme performance, learning it very deeply, doing it very professionally, that really can change how some of us relate to our gender and how we understand those performances. So my chapter is some of my experience, some gender theory, and some interviews with other folks who've had that similar journey. All right, and sorry, I had marked in a different copy where I was gonna start.
Here we go.
Thank you. Awesome. Beautiful, okay. The work of high femme performance required by the club can require so much labor that it is difficult to explore more masculine or androgynous presentations while still thriving in the industry. If you have to shave off all your body hair for each shift, you can't walk around rocking hairy legs and pits. If you lose money when you cut your hair too short, then you either keep your hair long or invest in some high-quality wigs. If you're expected to have long painted nails, that's an investment you display in your off hours as well. A particular scholar, Catherine Frank, theorizes that the value of strip clubs lies in their support of masculinizing processes. Strip club performances provide affirmation for a customer's sexuality and gender. In this way, they were more about masculinization than about sex, because genital sex is not usually actually provided on premises. And few strippers make the majority of their income from stage dancing alone. A big part of the work is having conversations with customers, building a relationship and crafting a fantasy together. In this process, customers will sometimes buy lap dances or time in a private room with the dancer, and they may also simply pay the dancer to sit with them at a table or at the bar and continue talking. Sometimes these interactions can be incredibly intimate, with customers sharing emotional confessions. My coworkers and I often joked that we were naked therapists. I frequently had customers who were recent widowers or divorcees. Our time flirting served as a way for them to reconnect with desire and with feeling desired after experiences of profound loss. As a performer, I worked to elicit my desire for them, focusing on some part I could find deeply attractive. From there, I could spin a web of authentic warmth and regard. At the same time, a level of inauthenticity that ran underneath the interaction, the knowledge that the customer was paying me for my time and attention, meant that he could express himself far more freely than I imagined he would on a real date. If he shared how lonely and miserable he was without his former wife, he didn't have to be afraid that I would express less attraction to him or walk away. In this way, the customer got to experience desire, supporting their masculinity, and connect emotionally with another person, supporting a common human need, while avoiding the chance of rejection, projecting their masculinity from being undermined. At other times, my femme performance was valued as a signal of the customer's virility and purchasing power, or served as an affirmation of the customer's heterosexuality. I would frequently be hired by a bachelor party to give the bachelor a private lap dance. At my club, lap dances occurred in private curtained booths separated from the main floor. This meant that as I walked the bachelor down the hall, I had several minutes to suss out his level of enthusiasm. It was not atypical for the bachelor to be neutral at best. Occasionally, when a bachelor appeared particularly uncomfortable, I would offer that we could just hang out in the booth and talk or check our phones. Then when the song was over, I could take him back to his buddies, rave about how wild he was, and no one was wiser. Many bachelors took me up on that offer with evident relief on their faces. Together, we took some time to relax, and then fulfilled all of the publicly viewable elements of this masculinizing practice. I would return the bachelor to his table of friends, give a saucy comment about how they needed to watch this handsy bad boy. The bachelor would be embarrassed, his friends would be delighted. A few bachelors insisted that they wanted the lap dance. I imagine some were uncomfortable with having the performances we were both engaged in laid bare. Or perhaps they disliked me calling their masculine performance, with the connotation of constant heterosexual desire, into question. In either case, I would give a lap dance to an extremely stressed out bachelor with a clenched jaw and held breath. It was incredibly awkward. Catherine Frank also notes how strip clubs offer a cover for male intimacy. The nude dancer and the performance of desire for her serves as a, quote, heterosexual safety precaution, allowing men to bond while denying any homoeroticism. By making a performance of straightness essential to the social activity, homophobic panic is quelled, and men can feel comfortable directly expressing their love and care for one another. This was clearly the function of the bachelor parties I served. Men in strip clubs aren't necessarily only performing for friends they came with to the club. Some men come to the club alone but perform for the other men present by demonstrating their purchasing power. A little bit. Essentially, throwing down a lot of money just becomes a way to demonstrate your virility and your capital to other men. Though the feminine performance skills of stripping were obvious, success in the industry also requires the development of some masculine-coded skills as well. To keep myself safe, I had to be ready to drop my fun, compliant, flirtatious persona and instead exert cold and direct boundaries. I had to drop my voice, make direct eye contact, and sometimes use my heels as a weapon. I might break apart the fantasy and make more explicit the exchange that was occurring and how exactly his behavior was out of line. If he got back in line, say by zipping his pants back up and giving me an extra big tip, then I was prepared to revert back to my prior performance. In this way, stripping became a porthole, allowing me to zip between gender norms and generally be rewarded for it. In truth, even as stripping demystified feminine performance for me, it simultaneously denaturalized masculinity because I witnessed its various performances over and over again. While I was learning how to perform the skills of high femininity, I was also seeing over and over the masculinizing performances around me in the club. In fact, my income depended on recognizing these masculine performances and what role I could play in supporting them. I came to see how fragile masculinity was, how it constantly needed to be affirmed. I saw man after man walking a thin tightrope of correct behavior. The same sort of tightrope I felt myself on as I tried and failed to fit into the femininity around me in middle school. And more often than not, these men seemed entirely unaware of their high wire act. To them, it seemed real. Real as in the only possible choice, and therefore not a choice at all. At the same time, as I was coming to experience the performativity of gender, I also began to notice which elements of these disparate performances felt most authentic to me. The key was realizing how resentful I felt during my non-work hours, when I found myself being expected to perform femininity I didn't truly desire performing. When was I laughing at jokes I did not find funny? Why was I supporting masculine performances in my free time? Why did it feel so good to wear about 10% of the makeup I would have worn at the club, but with baggy pants and big beat-up combat boots? I'm gonna end there.
Contributor is Anna Brooke, who is a teacher, healing arts practitioner, author of Stripped Down, How Burlesque Led Me Home. She's also known as Rev Legs Malone, a burlesque performer, producer, educator, and advocate for all things striptease.
Hi everyone, it's so good to be here. I have a new accessory since the last time I was on the stage. All right, I'm going to be reading 3 short excerpts from my piece, which is entitled Stripping Off Shame and Revealing Hot Joy. And I will let you know that the opening scene happens right here. Right here. It was a hot summer night with humidity that threatened to loosen the adhesive that was keeping me legal. Not much has changed. The backstage was a cramped, sweaty jumble of bodies in various states of undress. Our costumes, props, bags, and makeup cases were all over the place as we got ready for the second act. Condensation from our drinks pooled under the glasses, creating small wet circles on the ledges that held them. I was up next for my go-go set. I checked myself in the mirror, wig freshly pinned and glitter reapplied. I wore a netted dress stretched over my glistening body, my G-string prominent and ready for all the dollar bills that would get tucked in at all angles, my heels tall and sharp. I was ready to dance. I adjusted the flower in my hair, and as I walked out onto the dark stage, I could hear the audience. On the other side of the tall red velvet curtain stood and sat that crowd, thrilled by the first set and hungry for the second. I could hear them laughing, yelling, and steeping in the heat like us, except they had air conditioning on that side. The excitement was palpable, and I loved it. I poked my head out of the side to let the DJ know I was ready and positioned myself behind the curtains. I rolled my shoulders back, shook my hands out, and took a big breath. Ladies and gentlemen, for your go-go pleasure, please give a warm welcome to Legs Malone. The music started. I extended one arm out, suggestively stroking the curtain. A few whistles and cheers rose up. I withdrew my hand and poked one leg through the curtain. The whistles and hollers got louder. I turned around, parted the curtains, and slowly pressed my G-stringed rear out. The crowd went wild. I was in heaven. All right. This next part is the first time I ever saw a dirty martini. It was a baptism, let's face it. When Dirty stepped on stage, my jaw dropped. I had studied art history for years and had never once seen a body in person that looked like hers. The luscious, Venus-like women I had studied in Renaissance art had nothing on Dirty's curves. She commanded everyone's attention, her exceptional stage presence beaming out and her eye-popping figure strutting, bumping and grinding while elegantly clad in rhinestones and swirling fabric. Her beauty and what she did with those dangerous curves made me feel as if time itself had stopped. As I watched her, every single one of my self-hating, fat-shaming, body dysmorphic thoughts came up and turned to mist on the wind. My old limitations quietly imploded. I suddenly saw more than just Dirty at that moment. I saw a soul in motion, in perfect alignment with sacred purpose, a heart radiant with expression, and a body lit up with joy. More than a mere performer, she became before my eyes a sacred channel of sensuality that spun joyous tassels in the face of all the systemic, practiced limitations that lay outside of this one brilliant moment. Nothing could have prepared me for this sudden education, a flash realization that everything I had been taught was false, and that women are glorious, sensual, sexual creatures whose bodies and art deserve to be celebrated and supported. You could say her act literally blew my mind. And then the last part. Becoming a burlesque performer challenged my conditioning through the sheer forces of joy, sensual delight, and beauty. In the act of stripping, I peeled off the restrictions that had been cultivated in my body and mind, and from the generations that preceded me. I carry long lines of privilege in my bones, and it is a heavy cloak that carries deprivation in its very warp and weft. The stage is the first place I ever felt a deep part of me open up and be received in my wild uniqueness and imperfection. All of the subtle cues I had been studying over my life in order to be a good girl, to be socially acceptable and enjoyable in high adjacent society, suddenly became a palette of possibilities for me to inhabit on stage. Instead of strategically deploying my trained arsenal of behaviors to keep myself safe and hidden from humiliation, I embraced exposure and turned it into a job. I can take up all the space I want with whatever message or performance I am carrying in my body and heart. No one is waiting in the wings to crush my momentum. Sharing, reveling, and dancing my heart out are what makes me tick. And then the last line. I have deep, eternal gratitude for my stripper siblings who support, love, and cheer me on even if I feel like a walking hot mess. The fierce, protective love I feel in those dressing rooms activates my willingness to take chances, be weird, and uphold the same for others.
That's kind of Harvard, who is a genderful, disabled, white queer artist, access worker and researcher based in Philadelphia. The scholarly and performance work explores sexual culture, aesthetics and dance as sites of world building. Okay, Judy.
Many quick gestures in succession. In, out, swooping through bouncing fingers, first pointing toward you and then at me. I have to remind myself, right hand comes to scratch left shoulder, that I am talking about myself. Right hand up to shoulder level, bent at wrist, palm down, and then up to scratch the soft spot behind your right ear. To keep myself here with you. Hi, I'm Julia. I'm so thrilled to be here and hear from all of the exceptional artists involved in this project, and thank you to Lynn and Allie for bringing us together. I want to note that I'll be discussing art created in the aftermath of sexual violence, so I trust you all to take care of yourselves as the experts of your own experiences. I'll be speaking for about 5 minutes. In my chapter, I interviewed organizer and performance artist Jadalyn St. Dre about her exhibition, Choreographies of Disclosure, What the Mind Forgets. Choreographies of Disclosure, which premiered in Oakland, California in 2019, is a socially engaged, long-form project organized by St. Dre in collaboration with LGBTQIA+, multidisciplinary artists impacted by sexual violence. The project worked to uplift the voices of queer and trans survivors and survivors of color, voices that are often left out, co-opted, or forgotten in the mainstream movement to end sexual assault. Alongside the co-created multidisciplinary art in the exhibition, the project also hosted community forums, which centered queer and trans visions of a world without the threat of sexual assault, where we are the architects of our own healing and liberation. As we discuss in the interview, the works in the exhibition emerged from a really involved process, this intimate, year-long collaborative process between the individuals impacted by sexual violence and the artists representing those experiences. The process began with a conversation. So 3 queer and trans survivors consented to share aspects of their stories with St. Dre. These disclosures were documented through video and audio recording and then transcribed, recording both what was said as well as physical expression, somatic rhythms, patterns, and quality of movement. St. Dre then transformed these transcriptions into pieces of written choreography. These choreographic scripts, and you just heard a bit of one, were given then to Bay Area queer and trans artists who developed these works responding to the content in the medium of their choosing. And each survivor collaborator had co-authorship and final say regarding the outcome of each work, allowing the process to be restorative in itself as each person retained authority over their disclosure and its interpretation. So the resulting exhibition was an artistic call and response that showed the potential of radical empathy. Jadalyn and I met doing anti-sexual violence work in the Bay Area, California 10 years ago, and the collaboration we developed through organizing developed into a kinship and deep friendship. I attended Choreographies of Disclosure, and it was one of those works that just gets inside and sticks. I had never seen stories like this represented, stories that resonated with my own of queer and trans people surviving sexual violence, told by artists who listened to these stories and represented them with such respect and tenderness and creativity. And I was fascinated by what it would take to hold together the seams of this process. How do you facilitate such deep and generative listening that in itself creates something new from that experience of trauma? I was especially compelled by the attention to the choreographies of telling. What does the body express that words can't? How can attention to movement and gesture provide access to other aspects of the experience of trauma and its survival that are important to attend to if we want to build a world without sexual violence and misogyny, white supremacy, and abuse? And I just want to share my favorite moment from this interview. So I asked Jadalyn, it seems like you're thinking about listening as a practice of invoking action, rather than listening as something passive. What work does listening do, not only for the creators of this piece, but for the audience? Jadalyn replied, when we think about listening, we're not only talking about words or other forms of audible language, we're talking about making room for the entirety of the body and all the ways it communicates. In prioritizing gesture, we're making way for the roots of understanding. Being able to relate and empathize is absolutely critical for action and for movement. Think about mirror neurons and how amazing it is that when someone yawns, I often yawn right after. If I see a person in a place where they're expressing pain or trauma, could my body not resonate with that and reflect it? What if they're expressing transformation and restoration? Would my mirror neurons not pick that up? And would that not seed transformation and restoration in my body as well? For example, if we're doing body scanning and I say, well, in this situation, I was starting to feel afraid and I had this heavy pit in the base of my stomach. Does that stomach clench not matter? Does that stomach clench not have so much information about the way we relate to one another and about how we can then move more closely toward the eventual end of sexual violence as we know it, an eventual, consistent, radical form of site-specific consent? And what I love about this moment was the idea that a stomach clench could listen to another stomach clench. You know, that our bodies can communicate with one another beyond words, and the implications that this has for recovery and interdependence and solidarity. Thank you all.
The different approaches to writing has made this project so fulfilling to work on. It's like me and Lynn had this hunch that there were more stories out there that needed telling that we didn't know about. We had some idea from our own experiences of what kind of stories are out there, but we didn't fully know. And it's been such a privilege to work on them and hold these kind of ideas and develop them and create something that's moving and based on body intelligence, based on things that don't often kind of get rise to the surface because bodies are often spoken for, over, about, projected onto. So that sense of the wisdom of the body is incredibly moving to edit and draw together. So the final speaker is Marissa Vigneault. So come on out, Marissa. And Marissa is a teacher, teaches art history at Utah State and has published her research examining the ongoing influence of feminist politics on artistic production and the role of technology in shaping and affirming one's gender and sexuality via visual representation. Thank you.
Yes, I come from Utah, which is currently my home, although it makes me feel very unhomed to have Mike Lee, who just called for banning all pornography. So I promise to go back and do my best to resist on every level what that represents. All right, so I will read an excerpt from my essay entitled Selling Out, Art, Stripping, and Desire, which touches on the work of Hannah Wilkie, who was fixture in the LES and Soho in the 1970s, but I'll specifically speak about Tina Segal's work. I was in Los Angeles in February 2018 when a friend said, go see the Tina Segal piece at the Hammer. The pleasantly prodding tone of his voice led me to visit Stories of Almost Everyone, the exhibition that included Segal's work, later that afternoon. In the back seat of a sun-filled Uber on my way to the Hammer's Westwood neighborhood, I Googled Tino Segal, Hammer Museum, UCLA. A few blurry images and a review in the LA Times hinted what I would see. Some kind of striptease come artwork in one of the museum's brightly lit white cube galleries. I remember thinking, what will this do to me? Segal has a strict no photos, no videos policy of his work, which is nearly impossible to enforce in our cell phone camera era. The images of his work I viewed online were surreptitiously taken by others without institutional permission. But that is exactly what I like about them, an absence of authoritative context, which allows for distribution of the popular eye. The angle and slightly blurred edges immediately suggest the aesthetic of a cell phone photo, while the lack of direct eye contact by any of the players, or interpreters, as Segal prefers to call the participants, or even the observers, reinforces a furtively placed lens. I took no photos of my own encounter with Segal's work in the Hammer, not that my lack of action makes it any more meaningful or sacred. Rather, I share my experience of selling out through words filtered by my memory, which is at best a hazy reformation of what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt. That gut feeling, right, that Julie just talked about. In part, I use other people's photos to scaffold my own visualization of the staged museum space. The colors of the floor, the brightness of the room, the placement of the pedestals. But what I remember of the individual interpreter on the afternoon of my visit changes with every retelling of my story, because they're my stories for almost everyone. Selling Out, enacted a handful of times since its creation in 2002, programs a distant yet intimate triangulation between artist, solitary player, and viewer. In total, 7 players of varying gender identity animated Selling Out on varying schedules during the 3.5-month run at the Hammer. Each player, outfitted in a museum security guard outfit, worked a shift, walking around the space of the gallery in a tedious sort of way. Once a visitor entered the room, however, the player made a decision: remain clothed, or one might say guarded, or launch into a striptease. On the day I attended the Hammer, the player decided to strip for me. I was somewhat primed for this possibility, as Google had offered a digital trigger warning, yet fundamentally it is impossible to be prepared to witness a work of art, a sculpture, an installation, a piece, strip in real time. I walked into the gallery, scanning the space until I saw her. The player that day was burlesquer at Diamondback Annie, and she saw me. She smiled and then looked away, took a few steps back in her black heels, and dropped her guard badge onto the floor, marking the beginning of the act. For the next few minutes, she undulated through the space, slowly peeling off her garments while coyly catching my gaze. With the exception of a brief moment when an older man entered the gallery and whiplashed back out, I was the only viewer in the space during the striptease. I felt duly paralyzed and energized, but consistently uncertain of what my correct reaction should be. I smiled, I watched, I maintained a proper physical distance. I was overtly polite and respectful of her actions, which concluded with her in a flesh-colored G-string whispering, "Tina Segal, Selling Out, 2002. I didn't applaud, but I did silently mouth "thank you" before turning on my own heels and exiting the gallery. What I wanted to do was walk back in to see if she would strip for me again, to put down a bit of my academic guard the second time around, and take pleasure in the experience. Instead, I walked outside into the open-air courtyard of the Hammer, flicking on my sunglasses in an attempt to retreat back into the closed system of exchange Segal anticipated between the player and me. Reflecting on my experience years later, my most vivid and consistent thought is about how I reacted to the player's actions in the space of the museum. Did my response match institutional expectations? Did I perform correctly? Or did I misstep, even slightly, when my bodily response of pleasure seeped through as if I were a patron in a strip club? Herein lies a driving point in my thinking. How do we define proper conduct when the definition of a space, and more specifically its function, is so blurred? Social cues inform us how to behave in a museum and in a strip club, but those two spaces are typically distanced from one another. And if high art is brought into the artificially darkened arena of the lowbrow strip club, and stripping is brought into the equally artificially lightened space of the highbrow art gallery, the result is a disruption of spatial meaning, something feeling out of place, a collision in the vein of kitsch, which forever occludes a neat division of identities. Where then my pleasure and bodily enjoyment reside in the curated space of the gallery without being foreclosed by claims of entertainment and escapism, as if these have no critical merit? Charges of forefronting unserious and immoral content are levied by those critical of curatorial incorporations of pleasure, presumably due to pleasure's intractable tie to the bodily rather than the cerebral. But as curator Dieter Rollstratt writes, such objections to pleasure, or sex, in the staged museum gallery, quote, assumes that pleasure itself cannot think, that it is unthinking and therefore does not belong to the world of the intellect, and that thinking, conversely, cannot possibly be a source of real quasi-erotic pleasure, strange Cartesian dichotomies. Are we to consume art with our logical faculties alone? Check our bodies, trusted seats of feeling at the reception desk? Automatically distrust every laugh, smile, or smirk that swims to the surface of our continents as a perfidious symbol of intellectual bondage every time we walk through a museum? It is through my body that my experiences are borne out, eventually lodged as memories in both the sensitive surfaces of my skin and my hippocampus. I want to experience my body as a pleasurable body in the space of the gallery. I want the flush of uncertainty, the memories of past touch, of something deep in my gut to surface again. I want to trust the coy smirk of the player as she strips from me, only me, before her shifts end and she is alchemically converted into non-art. So what does it mean that I am a pleasurable viewer, or at least a viewer susceptible to pleasure? I enjoyed selling out from the disembodied perspective as a work of art in the lineage of conceptualism. But I also enjoyed the striptease as an embodied observer, taking pleasure in the exposure of flesh and the real. I personify the confusion of space and art, which is itself a disruptible category, as its demands are always scattered around the viewer's desires. I, too, desire something of Segal's work. Intimacy is perhaps the right word, but not intimacy in the romantic sense. Rather, intimacy in the form of close knowledge, something private and personal and secretive. This is a seduction, of Segal's work. The promise of intimacy that blossoms only as a promise. It is, of course, an intimacy that can never be secured. So where I am left and where I leave you is in the mire of unanswerability, the space between absolutes, a gray zone that is neither fully visible nor invisible, akin to a desired memory where I walked back into that gallery and Annie stripped for me again.
So much. Give it up for Allie J. Carr, who hosted our first half of our reading. She came all the way from the UK to be here tonight, and she's got her beautiful original artwork for sale if anyone would like to support. We're going to take a quick intermission so y'all can get a drink. Please tip your bartenders. And we have books available for sale. $29.95. We've got QR codes, we've got Sharpies. I also have my other book called Neo Burlesque, which has a chapter that starts here at the Slipper Room, like our reading here tonight from Legs Malone. So if you'd like both, I have a very special offer for you tonight, both for $50 if you've got some green, all right? So we're gonna take a little break so that we can get less comfortable and take off our clothes. We have a tiny little show for you. We're gonna see a couple of our incredible readers, and y'all are in for a fucking treat right now, because if you didn't know, now you know. One of the world's greatest burlesque performers, many of the world's greatest burlesque performers are here tonight, but one of them came all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada to join us. Known as the Expertise Michelle Lamore. We're going to do that again at the end of the night, and you guys are all going to explode all over the place. Michelle's incredible. And we also have the mother of all motherfuckers, Rosewood. So let's take a little intermission and, drink up, kids. Hit it! Good job.
L-A-U-R-I-E. L-A-U-R-I-E.
How y'all feeling tonight? You're gonna see something real sad. I'm about to come at you with a broken ankle. Sexy. You probably saw our incredible kitten earlier. Give it up for Mia Julep! She walked around and gave you a little gift, and it wasn't just a gift of her beauty and intelligence. She gave you all a bookmark, and on that bookmark there is a QR code. And if you're feeling what you're about to see tonight, and I have a feeling that you are about to feel it, then go ahead and click on that QR code and click one of those first little links for TIP. A little bit of tips. We're gonna give that money to the beautiful slipper room. Make it rain. We're gonna give some money to our incredible performers tonight. But right now, we're here to show y'all what sex on stage looks like. Are you guys ready for some show? Right on, right out. Our first performer is coming out of retirement to teach you exactly how to dance at a strip club. Give it up for Eden!
Second. Third. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. Seventh.
One, the number of times a customer has tried to put a cigarette in my pussy. Two, the number of times I've used my heels as a weapon. Three, the number of times I've cried at work. 212, the number of men who asked me to come home with them after my shift. 5, The number I really wished had asked me to come home with them. 1. The number of women I've given a lap dance to. 2. The number of coworkers I made out with for a customer. 3. The number of recent widowers who cried on my breasts. 5. The number of men who just wanted to spoon and chat in their lap dance room. 1. The number of customers who passed out while I was giving them a lap dance. $30. The minimum amount I have to tip out the bartender, DJ, and house mom every shift. $60. The minimum I have to pay management just to come into work. 50%. The portion the club takes from every lap dance and champagne suite. 1,015. The most money I've made in one night. -57. The least I've made in one night. 1. The number of times I've been assaulted at the club. 0. The amount of protection the club provided. 45,000. My student loans and medical debt combined. Empowering. Feel idolized. Worshipped. To feel like I am winning the game of the male gaze. Devastating. To realize that even with all my education, all my privilege, all my talents and hard work and advantages, the thing my culture most values about me is my naked body. Real. I don't know any full-time creative artist who isn't either supported by their family or doing sex work. And you know what? For those few years, it felt really good to actually be paid to dance.
Give it up for Eden! Take a bow, that was incredible. We're so excited to bring our first burlesque performer up here to the stage. They are 1/4 of the Hip Hop Burlesque Festival that's coming in September to New York City. So please follow them on Instagram at Boombox Burlesque. This is the North Light guiding us all to the promised land. Please welcome to the stage the incredibly talented and sizzling hot Aurora Borealis.
Don't hurt me. You better take your woman and hide. I'm about to. Boy. Got to. Tell me what's really good. Really good. Trick you off like you do I would. Brand new dance. I got a brand new dance. And it's called a working. Working up a black sweat. I'm working. Working up a black sweat. I'm working. Breakdown. You can act hard if you want to. This groove will make you sweet. You be screaming like a white lady. Wait, I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Black sweat. Working. Working up a black sweat. Working. Working up a black. Working. Working up a black. Black sweat. Are we all alone? 'Cause I'm about to get whooping hard. It's time to send your company home and turn off your cell phone. Baby, can't you see? I just wanna get you satisfied. This is gonna be a long night. Long. A little bit longer afternoon. Girl, if we get this thing right, ooh, you're gonna get satisfied real soon. Say, can't you see? I'm just trying. That I wanna get you satisfied. Satisfied, girl. I ain't talking about nothing physical. 'Cause foreplay starts in the mind. I'm just trying to get you to go on do things that you've always wanted but could never find. I'm gonna sing this thing like a lover sailing over the sea. Tease and chastity. I'm just trying to get you satisfied, satisfied, satisfied. Oh, satisfied. Another lover. Let me tell you, baby, all tricks aside. I can get you out of your body. Felt satisfied.
Literally giving us sex on stage, Aurora Boom Realis. Good job. You're all still having some fun tonight. Are we still having some fun tonight? Congratulations for not doom scrolling Instagram and being with all of us here together, a live event. I am so excited to be here. So thank you to the Slipper Room for hosting us. Give it up for the Slipper Room. The birthplace of neo burlesque. That all started here. And there was a couple perverts that were there right here in the front. And I only know that because I was here too. So. We're so excited to bring our next performer to the stage. They are not only a stunning human being, an incredible writer, but they also are a minister. The minister with the 34.5-inch inseam. Please clap loud, clap hard for the one and the only. Wait for it. Wait for it. Sorry, I stole Bradford Scobie's line. Please give it up for the one and only Legs Malone.
Driving you behind the steering wheel.
have some student perverts here, is that correct? Some NYU students? Yes, we are starting our class. I teach a class at New York University on the history of American burlesque for 22 years. I started when I was 12. So I'm really excited that some of the kids came out to see what they're about to get ready for in class. Lucky you. Oh my goodness. Well, listen, I need to, someone come and help me get down these stairs. It's so sad, thank you. I need to come down with you people and watch, because if you haven't seen our next, thank you, my love, thank you. What a gentle person right there. Give it up for the gentle person right there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know our next performer, you will not be able to ever get it out of your mind. I'm going to invite everybody to take both of your hands and reach them up to the sky, no matter what you believe in. Say, thank you, Jesus! Then I want you to take those hands and just glide them gently down your body. And then I want you to lift up your little tush and sit on your hands. No newspapers, people! Let's keep it clean for our next performer. You've probably seen her on the television or in the magazines, and you are about to see her in full effect here. She's absolutely incredible. My nipples are already hard, and yours are about to be too. Are you guys ready for this? All the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. Exceptional talent and beauty. Michelle motherfucking Lamore. happen. It's gonna be so fierce. We're gonna bring someone else to introduce them. We couldn't figure out the best way to end the book, and when we got this submission chapter, an interview between the drag historian Joe E. Jeffries, teaches at New York University, teaches a class on RuPaul's Drag Race all over the country at the New School. They've exhibited their films all over the world at museums and institutions and festivals, including the Tate Modern.
Yeah.
When we saw that they wanted to submit a chapter, we go, well, that's the end of the book. And yep, that's the end of our show here tonight. So we're gonna introduce, please bring to the stage the incredible Joe E. Jeffries to introduce our final performance of the night.
I got a mic. Is this mic working? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the Slipper Room. My name, as you just heard, is Joe E. Jeffries, and I am ideologically impure. I hope you are all too. If you're not, I will pray for you. We're going to close these curtains. I'm going to work in one. Right? I'm going to work in one. I can work in one here. As you just heard, Rose Wood and I created the final chapter.
Yeah.
So it is fitting and appropriate that here we are, end of the show, and we're going to close it out. Rose and I first became acquainted, 2007, 2008. There's a little bar kind of down the street and around the corner, this dive called The Box. It had just opened. Rose has been the headliner and constant act there since it opened. Rose, The Box eventually opened a branch in London where Rose performs on a monthly basis, right? 3 weeks here at The Box, a week there in London at The Box. Some people may have heard the term transgressive art. What Rose peddles is trans-aggressive art.
Yeah!
And you are about to be treated and delighted to this trans aggression this evening. When this House of Burlesque was downstairs, I started videotaping Rose's performances. There are some things that once you've seen them, you can't unsee them. And well, videotape is going to push that into the future, well into the future. So people who are not even born yet will not be able to unsee any of this. Right? I thank you all for coming. Once again, please welcome the motherfucker of all motherfuckers, the queen of filth, Rose Wood. Please put your hands.
Everything gonna be all right this morning. Oh yeah.
Welcome to the wonderful world of herpes.
Now when I was a young boy,
Brought to you by Jack Daniels.
at the age of 5, the greatest man alive.
poopy water was coming, did you not? See people in the front row? They're like, we've been waiting for the poopy water. They're gonna collect it off the table and put it in a little vial and take it home and put it on their altar. Thank you. Speaking of altars, we have a whole nother show tonight here at the Slipper Room, so if you'd like to stick around, buy a ticket, please support live performers. In the meantime, we're not getting kicked out right now. Grab another drink, let's have some fun. How's that sound, y'all? And don't forget, there's more books to be bought, there's more tipping, so please dip deep, 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 deep down into your pockets and share a couple dollar bill, y'all, with us if you can. Give until it hurts, if you know what I mean. Our incredible stage kitten, Mia Julep's gonna walk around and just take all your money from ya. Oh, I love when people cheer for that. So thank you all for coming to the book launch of Sex on Stage. Give it up for Allie J. Carr. I love ya. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for supporting Sex on Stage. Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. The last time I saw her act,